welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings Here in a place where it snows too much lately. So anyway, so a couple of feet of snow last week and then more snow now, and kind of irritating. So didn't get as much done as I intended this week. So what else is news? Yeah, not much else. So I have a lot of work to do. So this is just a video to just get to a subject, not really do the subject, just kind of point to a subject. In terms of part of this obligation is this performance art of persuasion and the methods of persuasion. So I have in the past attempted a flow chart of sorts in video form. And, just to let's get to the first question. Do you get the evolution thing? And you say, yeah, I get that. And then you go to the next subject, then you go to the next subject, and then you go to the next subject. And just try to whittle it down to this idea of recognizing what evolution is, what the context of our existence is, what we really are. The whole robot argument, all of these little pieces that are thrown in and said, look, when you add all that up, you kind of get that this is a holocaust, right? This is actually a meat grinder. And you're just sitting here watching the video, and actually people do this. I mean, this is very popular, the fail videos, watching people die and watching horrible things happen. This is actually people's entertainment, and it's sort of revealed in the movies, because all the movies have gotten gratuitously obsessed with let's kill them in the worst possible way possible, kind of thing. So it's clearly entertainment for people, and that is because they have some negating notion in their head that just means it isn't going to happen to me, and therefore it doesn't matter that it's happening in this gratuitous form. And like I said, it's sort of like playing video games, right? I mean, video games, you can do that because you have this real understanding that's synthetic. It's not a real thing happening. There's no real blood, no real death, and no real pain, and no real suffering. So, that illusion has been spread, across reality. So anyway, I said the word Holocaust on purpose, just because there are people who just keep trying to paint me as an anti-Semite. I've never had a thought, an anti-Jew thought. I mean, I had, some of my best friends, it's just a literal truth in my life, were Jewish, and I didn't pay any attention to it at the time. But apparently I should have wrote it down, I should have had the person give me a seal of approval. Maybe I should have gone to a synagogue and actually participated in some way so I could say I'm really part Jewish or something. Like I have 4 Jewish points, or just some kind of, badge of, hey, he's not trying to kill us. He doesn't want the Jews annihilated. He doesn't think the Jews are inferior. He doesn't think they smell bad. He doesn't, how many times do I have to say I have nothing against Jews at all? I don't care I'm not a Torah lover. Okay, I think circumcision was really a good idea. But yeah, most of this crap, the animal bleeding and all this, I don't have much to say nice about some of the practices of Judaism. I don't like any religion, and I certainly don't think there should be racial states. I don't think we should make race countries or theology countries. So I don't really support Israel in a sense. I support it in the sense it already exists, and you can't blow it up or something. Yeah, that's not the right way to do it. You're not going to deconstruct it now that you're stuck with it, but I wouldn't support doing it anywhere else. So in some sense I'll say that's sort of a political trespass that was committed by the Jews. For the Jews, or, for some political reasons. That seems very hypocritical and wrong-headed, and that doesn't go anywhere good. That's like the Indian reservations, right? The reservations didn't work too well, did it? No, it didn't. It failed dismally. So yeah, I'm not for. There's lots of political choices you have in life. And yes, I don't believe every story told that took place in World War II. Okay, and so a lot of them were for political reasons. It's kind of obvious there was lots of incentive to gild lilies and do some things, and so fine. But that's my personal belief. Okay, I'm not telling anybody else not to believe. I'm not sitting there making um, you know, uh, lengthy arguments in defense of the point because I don't think I need to. I don't need people. I don't care what people believe on this subject. They're entitled to their opinions. Okay, so I have no. I'm making no effort or any contribution to any group or social mechanism that intends to use some sort of Holocaust denial to, in some way, harm Jewish people. I have no interest in any such movement. Okay, none. But it's just a fact that I don't believe all the stories. I don't think there's convincing evidence. And so if some Jewish person wishes to call me a Holocaust denier, I can't deny them their right to do that. Just as I'm going to call people Holocaust deniers who are pro-natalist, people who are pro-nature, nature lovers. I'm going to call them Holocaust deniers. All right, so that's my prerogative. They are evading something, a grotesque trespass against decency that nature commits every single day, every single second. Just using and abusing these poor victims to sit there and prove a theory about a genetic code. Okay, I mean the code says let's make something, Frankenstein. Let's change something in the code, and now let's make a little demonstration models and send them out in the world with this code and see if this code works better. I mean, they're all being test organisms. It's an insidious laboratory. All right, just like your whole medical industrial complex that's breeding a bunch of clone little mice every day and shoving them, right through the Vegematic, just shoving them through the Vegematic, turning them into shit, giving them cancer and sewing shit on their heads and doing all kinds of insidious things, all in defense of your better life. Better life through torture. That's the theme, okay, of the activities happening in the human project. The human project is doing a ton of things that are overtly disgusting, grotesque, horrible, evil, nasty, all the words you could come up with. And they're just facts. And so if you're defending it, you are a Holocaust denier. And again, no offense to the Jews, but they don't own the word Holocaust. They just don't. Okay, it was invented before their Holocaust, and the fact is that's what it is. Okay, nature has been doing it. Nature invented it. Period. And so yeah, we can play games with words. Is I guess my point here. The point I'm attempting to make is that yes, it all just becomes some witty word game, word play bullshit, and unfortunately, all of that has to be somehow talked through, and there has to be some point where there's a real conversation outside of a bunch of emotional overreactions and insane rhetoric. So this is Steve Godfrey has been somebody, pushing all of this crap, using any kind of stupid argument to say, you hate cats, so they made me into some sort of evil cat hater when I couldn't. I mean, I could only prove I'm exactly the opposite. I couldn't have more empathy for their condition. And I'm evil because I realize that cats really don't have a future plan for their life. Okay, you can't trespass against their great ambitions for the future, and if they go to sleep and they don't wake up again, you can't really describe the tragedy that just took place, Because pretty much cat is cat is cat is cat. I mean, yes, they all have an individual personality, but it's just basically how they meow or something, or how they knock something off the table. The extent of the distinctions are so slight. And there's a real problem because they're in a completely unfinanced, indecent world they have to live in, because we as a society have decided they're not important enough to care for and to protect from slums and debaucheries and horrible circumstances. So last summer I just watched a cat go through this process. It had 6 kittens. Very cute, incredibly cute, and there's one left. 5 are dead in a year. So 5 little stories of getting shoved through the Vegematic, and you people think it's worth it, and you think the one left, if it was a female, it happens to be a male, but let's say if it was a female, the cycle should just continue. The rape, which it is with cats. We should just let her get raped and then raped and then raped and then raped, and go through the same process of killing 5 out of 6 forever. I'm saying no, I don't think that's a good idea at all. I want to vote against it in any way I can. And if I can do something harmless to mitigate, if there was a way, yes, I'm going to be for it. So unless you have some better solution, which you're not providing, your solution is just let it keep happening. Let's not do a damn thing about it. Yeah. Let's just perpetuate it forever in perpetuity. No, I'm not going to vote for that. And I'm going to think anybody who is voting for that is a dumbass and evil and cruel. You can only be cruel, in my opinion. There's no other word I can put you. There's no other category that you fit in. You're endorsing pointless and irrational suffering. No good reason to perpetuate it. None. So anyway, so in this particular bullshit argument, okay, he's picking on Superhuman Dance's flowcharts, which I'm going to pick on. And I'll pick on my own. Like I said, I mean, my efforts haven't been complete either. I haven't diagrammed the argument perfectly, but I'm saying this is the way to do it. I mean, the first thing to do is to figure out what the stumbling block is. Now, we know that religion is a huge, gigantic rationalization. Now, the trick is, I don't think it's a real argument, because I don't think any of these people who claim faith actually have faith. They just think other people need to believe in God so they don't be evil. Yeah, they need to be afraid of God. They think religion actually does control other people when they know it doesn't even control them. So that's the funny part. Because they don't really believe in any of this crap. And so it just gets to how cynical they really are. And the real point is what they are is just so very unenlightened. They're so small-minded, they really still think that life is about their life. And it's not about the whole big giant picture. And they really think that they're spared the horrors. They were spared being a Siamese twin, or they were spared being born without eyes, or they were spared all these things because they deserved it. And the people who aren't lucky like they are unlucky for good reason. They really think it works somehow like that. And those consciousnesses, the other people consciousnesses, aren't as special as their consciousness, their own little life. And so they're really just measuring how they're functioning relative to these failures that they see around them. And that's their standard. I mean, their standard isn't, they're just not thinking it through. And so some of this tries to get to that, but yeah, you can't get to it. It has to be done better than this, better than it's been done by my example or Superhuman Dance's example. So I just thought it'd be worth just pointing this out. I'm not trying to pick. I'm just pointing out how the argument's got to go. It's got to find you've got to shoot for the heart. We've got to find the right target, and this doesn't hit the target. Okay, so for the first question is, are you okay with the practice of procreation for yourself? And then it goes right to, if you say no, then you're an antinatalist. Well, no, you really aren't, okay? I mean, I was an antinatalist from birth, you could argue, because I was never comfortable with the idea of having anything called a kid. What the hell would I do? I knew right from the beginning. What do I want that for? What am I going to do with it? What good is it? It's just a worry. It's like having a pet, that has a mind of its own. It wants to do stuff and go places. It's not just sitting there saying, looking at me saying, what's next? It's going to get into all kinds of trouble. Anyway, I'm just saying I never had any positive thoughts about how child rearing would go in terms of how it's any good for me. I mean, how do I get something out of it? I couldn't figure out the what do I get out of it part, because I just saw the obligation part. Like, this is just a really pain in the ass kind of, it's not like a fish tank and you got to clean the algae off and you got to, stir the gravel now and then. You got to do these certain little jobs, or a dog, and you got to feed it every day, and you got to do all this crap. You got to, clean up its poos and whatnot. No, this has seemed like just a whole lot of obligations. That why would I want any of this trouble, and why would I want to talk baby talk? I mean, obviously in my, before I was say 11 or something. I didn't think that far. But as soon as I was of an age to know what the hell of a menace I was able to say, why would I want me? I mean, why would I want to try to raise me? I don't want that problem. Because I knew there was a certain truth to this structure thing, and that this whole thing, all the impediments in life were necessities. I mean, somebody could argue you have to go to school, and I'd say, well, why? I don't have. And then they give the simple argument, but because you'll be unintelligent and incompetent. And I'd have to say, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's not a good thing. Incompetent people suck. So you have to concede to some of this crap. And why would I want to be the imposer of that kind of all the regiment and all the rules and all the being the authoritarian? I didn't want that role. Well, anyway, I'm going on and on. But the point is, I wasn't anti-natalist. I wasn't anti-life. I don't have any interest personally. So that's just just way too simplistic. That you're automatically anti-natalist because you personally don't have an interest in having children. So, and then if you go on the other side, okay, you're a natalist. Yes, you do fit into the category of natalist if you are desirous or think having children makes sense. Okay, but the next question basically is saying, no matter what happens, are you comfortable with having kids? Like if a kid comes out broken, or it doesn't say that. It just says any possible human being that could ever exist. Well, obviously people don't think they're going to have every possible human being. So, I mean, obviously white people don't think they're going to have black people. Lots of things they think they're immune to. They don't live in Bangladesh, so they're not going to have a little Bangladeshian, here in America. So they already think they're immune to a ton of that, every possible human. So you really have to narrow it down. And you have to say, are you comfortable imposing a life of blindness on a child, or, a very small penis, or, some other difficulty, problem, disability, impairment. And, if they say, no, I'm not very comfortable, but I'm going to do it anyway. I mean, what's your, so his thing is to just say, as soon as somebody says they're okay with any possibility, he says they're absurd and they've contradiction of values. What value do they contradict? Especially if they believe that life is about me and it's not really about them. Even my children aren't me. So how does it affect me? It affects me how? Obviously there's no contradiction. Now you could say it's absurd to be so stupid, but clearly there's a ton of people that are that absurd. So just calling them absurd, you're absurd. Well, you have to do a little more than that, because that's not going to convince them. Just saying you're wrong. Well, you got to do a little more than that. So that's just, another dead end where you really didn't get to the subject. And then on the other side, he has, are you in control of your loins? I mean, this isn't about loin control. We know that most of the people born in the world are not born by accident. It's not some loin control problem. It's quite willful and deliberate. Okay, so it's a tiny percentage that are real accidents. Now, clearly, there are people where they just didn't say, let's plan it and have kids, but they clearly didn't make any plans not to. So making no plans not to is the same thing as saying go ahead. It's like somebody who figures I don't ever have to buy new tires. Now you could argue they didn't deliberately crash into somebody else's car, but but clearly they've made no contingency against the failure. So if you make no contingency against failure, that's pretty much saying you did it on purpose, right? I mean, that should be an agreeable argument, that it's sort of on purpose when you make no contingency to prevent something from happening. I mean, you do nothing to stop it. That's the same thing as pretty much putting a quarter in the machine. Anyway, so yes, this to me is not the way to get. You have to get to the elemental beliefs that are in the way. And I would argue the best way to see that is to see why you are the way you are. So clearly it was obvious to me that having kids was a liability. And that's without even getting into the moral or ethical liability. The liability of just inconvenience was already enough for me. And then when thinking about the incredible responsibility that you are being a god, you are creating, this is your experiment now. It's totally got, you have the blood on your hands. If there is any, it's on your hands. Being responsible for the welfare of something, those thoughts really started in my teenage years. Those ones made me really, if I wasn't anti-natalist before, that's when you could say I crossed the line that made me officially anti-natalist, because first I realized that it doesn't matter whether it's my kid or anybody's kid. The whole idea of subjecting children to this task of having to, survive this competition, to be what, to do what, to accomplish what, and how the failure and all the tragedy that has to happen for the success, for the guy who lives to be 95 years old and blah, 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 blah. There's this whole bloody trail of all the things that fail to succeed. That he's in part going to feed on in his life. He's going to take advantage of it. He's going to get this bigger Social Security check because of the suckers who died early. He's stealing their money to live better. I mean, even things that seem good have a horrible and disgusting taint on them when you figure out what they're really made out of. Where you start seeing the real cannibalism. I used to use this word, consumption, reproduction, cannibalism, parasitism, crap. Because it is just cannibalism. It's just, and you take it that step. Like I said, we're feeding on each other's, taking advantage of the fact that we trip each other, and then we eat, the corpses, which gets to a whole nother subject, right? As soon as you say eat the corpses, and you start to, oh yeah, that's right. The other parts of history I have some doubts about is whether the Japanese invaded China just to eat Chinese people. There's people in China think that's a real theory. That Japanese considered Chinamen a delicacy and invaded China for the purpose of having dinner. It doesn't sound quite right. Anyway, whole nother point. Whole nother different subject. But see, now I'm somehow against Chinese people because I'm arguing that the Japanese weren't motivated to eat them. But anyway, so I can be labeled something. But the people defending, the pro-lifers, they don't have to. They don't have to accept any label. They're pro-life, even though pro-life means you're pro-imposing death, because that's how it works out. Yeah, and any kind of death, because you have made no contingencies to prevent the worst of kinds of deaths. We have no social mechanism. I can't choose to just go in for surgery and just ask the doctor to please fail dismally. Okay, so while I'm on the operating table, just have an accident and accidentally cut my heart out, or stick a wooden stake through my brain, whatever you choose, just fail some way, just let it all leak out somewhere or something, have something go catastrophically wrong so I just don't wake up. But no, we don't have that choice. Simple choices to preserve, to protect ourselves from unnecessary suffering, and these, these do-gooders, these fighters for the good cause. I mean, it's a joke what they're defending. It's undefensible. It's indefensible. And especially here we are, and well into the 2020s now, and the human race is getting more and more buffoonish, more and more baboonish. They're putting people on the Supreme Court who don't believe in evolution. I mean, the trend lines are going in the wrong direction, and that's tragic, and so it makes it even less defendable. I mean, anything arguing against the progress of the human race should be rewarded and fed, and instead of this whatever nitpicky nonsense built out of petty resentments. Ugh, pathetic. But anyway, all right. So take a pause and see where I go from here. But really, I don't want to spend my time just, having to defend myself against all these little gratuitous and cheap shots that people take. This quote mining horse shit of trying to portray me as something. And again, it really, I understand that to a mind that's going to be capable of understanding anything, all of that probably won't mean anything. But it can distract from what really should be the subject, is what is the solution to the problem. Because you can't have it both ways. You can't give the victims their right to freedom. You can't let them escape. You can't free them. You can't free the slaves and empower the oppressor. You can't do both. So you have to make a choice. Either the victims are worth saving, or you think the oppressors are doing something worthy of, defendable. That they're somehow the acceptance of the slavery is part of. We need the cotton. We need. They're giving us something that's worth it. It's worth creating the victims. Because you can't have it. There's no solution to that problem. And you have to just accept that you have to be on a side. It's either Nazis or Americans. You really have to choose one or the other. Okay, so I'll be back. Snowing more now. Alright, should be back. So anyway, thinking, this is the stuff that pops into the head. So you sit here and have 10 minutes of quiet time and say, well, what arguments should I emphasize? And you can go into the robot thing, and that you're just a cultural artifact. It's like this machine just, it makes a clay plate and then it paints some crap on the plate. Your culture makes you into something, and you're a unique little drawing on the stupid little plate. And then it just takes the plate and puts it on a rock, and a hammer comes down and smashes the plate, right? So that's all you're doing here. You're just a clay plate, draw some crap on it, put it on the rock, smash it, That's it. That's the big accomplishment, is you're keeping the little plate smashing machine going. You're keeping it running. That's what pro-life is. And the disadvantage is that before, some of the things you paint on the plates are disgusting. They're really grotesque. There's real experiences involved, and the experiences aren't your experience. Just as history isn't made out of your people. Most of the people that existed on Earth don't have any lineage. There's no survivors. Okay, their branch on the tree went right into the acid bath, and they were slowly dissolved. And that's all that remains is somebody can say what happened. They can't even know what happened. They can just tell you that's probably what happened, okay? That their branch of the tree led to quicksand, or, they got eaten by something, or they got killed by a parasite, or they got the plague. These things happened to them, and you never heard their story, and you never appreciated it, and you never recognized it as a cost. And, that's what people feed on, and that's what they live on, is just this terrible and offensive Holocaust denial. You could argue that after World War II, the big baby boom, so after all this horror, 50 million people dead, just gross, really gross. All of the hardship and the pain and the suffering and the, even Patton ended up paralyzed, by the, technically, a victim of his war. Got hit by a horse cart and broke his neck. Anyway, but tragic story, horrible stories, horrible, just awful, 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 awful. And what is the response? Let's just get over it. Let's just move on and make some more plates so we can break some more plates. I mean, it's so stupid and so illogical that we really should be able to make the point in a video. I should be able to make one video and there, I'm done. I did it. Okay, I made the argument. I, emphasized the obvious points. And we know that the only obstacle to that is that you can't make one video and convert people from their religions. And it's all about religions. It's all about ideologies they have invented in their head that say there is a redeeming function here. That they aren't just fish. They aren't just fish that can sing and dance. Fish that can pick their nose and watch a movie. Yeah, that's what you are. You're just a fish, okay? and you're sitting in your Barca lounger playing with yourself, but you're not, there's no accomplishment here, and the price being paid for your comfort, your pizza and beer, the price paid for it is extraordinarily high. And you should have some respect for that. You should be able to hear the moans and groans of all the soldiers, the 50 million people who were ruined. Let's say 100 million, because you have to count all the people ruined by the war, whose life was just ruined. Orphaned and this and all the horrible, sad stories of poverty and debauchery and horror that took place because of humans being incapable of functioning in any kind of decent manner. So, so yes, the argument should be able to be made. It should be able to be made by reasonable human beings in some sort of reasonable fashion where, the UFOs say it's okay, where irrational arguments just aren't valid. Citations to, well, God says, that just should be too stupid an answer. In 2020, we should be done having to account for what's written in 2,000-year-old parchments, silly little stories told about magical gremlins, giant gremlins in the sky. All of that crap should be done with, and you should have to defend the actual function. And the actual function is you're a fish, okay, that evolved the scheming brain, and that's mostly what it is. It's you evolved it for the purpose of your survival and your genetic, I won't say superior, your genetic survival. Um, and the mission gave you a tool that helps make that happen. So you have to understand that the tool does have a bias for, you being a little bit myopic about what's happening to the rest of the world and being very focused on what's happening to you. And that should be one of the really easy things to figure out, that, oh yeah, I got to remember that I'm a selfish shithead by design, and that's a little bit illogical. It'd be illogical for me to think it's more important if I'm happy than that guy's happy, or that guy, or you listening to this video. You would honestly be able to say, oh, you're pretty stupid if you don't think I'm just as important as you. you know, that's pretty dumb. At least your welfare, your comfort. You'd have to concede. Now, you could argue that some people are more functional, more people, people have better abilities, and blah blah blah. And so, if you have to throw somebody out of the lifeboat, yeah, maybe you'll throw the guy who eats too much. But whatever. I'm just saying that's not the standard we're talking about. We're just talking about the standard of your welfare, your comfort, your satisfaction. So as soon as I know that, then I know that all these people who are going down those branches that aren't going to get anywhere. They're walking. They're being obligated to walk the road that goes to quicksand. They're being obligated to walk the road that goes to blindness. They're obligated to walk the road that goes to cancer. Premature dementia. You got to know that's the price being paid for you to be able to walk the better road, the branch that goes somewhere, and it doesn't go anywhere except it lasts longer. Get real. So again, and all the arguments you can make are just about how horribly rude and cruel it is for you to sit there and say, I have a right to impose life, to impose all of the insane risk that comes with living, all the risk that you're going to get stuck on one of those roads that just goes to quicksand. Gambling addiction, alcoholism, drugs, blah, all the things. I mean, how can somebody, how can you not know, well, if I had all those character defects where I'm sitting there defending all of that crap, I'd have to be a terrible, awful human being. Why am I defending a bunch of wasted suffering? That should be an idea that's conveyable to somebody. That's all you're really accomplishing. All your pro-life bullshit, you're not being optimistic, and you're not, encouraging the human race and being a good little cart pusher. You're pushing the cart right into the Vegematic. You're pushing victims right into their horror. For what? Why are you doing that? What do you really think we're accomplishing here besides being fancy fish? Well, yeah, you almost have to say that's got to be enough. I mean, here, crocodile teeth. This is what we're, our tools are just like those teeth are a tool. That's what our intelligence has become. It's just become a weapon. Two little scurvy eyes are just using the weapon. And here you aggrandize our function by saying, well, look, we can do all of this thinking. And it's the very thing, as your Bible almost says it overtly. Your brain isn't for thinking. Don't pick fruit from the tree of knowledge, understanding. Just be a crocodile. That's all you're defending. Be a winner. Make losers. Making losers is a great occupation. No, it's not. It's an ideal function. Making losers. Watching things have to go down the conveyor belt to their doom. That's a good job. No, it isn't. Yeah, so that should be enough. But anyway, so yes, I have to engineer. I have to apply strategy to get to, I have to look into those little crocodile eyes of the world, of human perspective, and I have to be able to talk to these different kinds of animals. I have to use words that work on crocodiles and lizards and snakes and all the different kinds of ideological perspective, and make them all realize, oh, I'm a robot. Oh, I'm just mechanically functioning based on the garbage in, garbage out. I'm just a byproduct of a culture, of themes and memes and cliches. Groovy. You're just bullshit. Living out a doomed existence that will, in fact, accomplish nothing. And the only thing, from a view from any kind of perspective, and all the intelligence could ever see on the planet Earth is a bunch of broken plates. The beauty is all a facade. It's all just fake. It doesn't say anything about the underlying reality. Even, like I said, the lizard's sort of beautiful, interesting, intriguing, all of these things, but the function isn't. It's a frickin' mouth and an anus. It's a Vegematic. Quit glorifying this project, because it's just you're just sitting here as salesmen, selling a lemon, just sitting here just promoting the existence of poison, and you're doing it for no good reason except some notion in your head that this is what winners do. And it's only what winners do by propaganda. It's only it's sort of like you can sort of see the way we've infected other cultures, and you see, North Korean presidents wearing three-piece suits and all that kind of stuff, and it's just such an obvious pollution. And that's all you're doing. You're just trying to pollute. You're not accomplishing anything. You're just selling crap, and you feel like you're winning because you sold a lot of crap. There's a lot of crap being made, and so therefore you're all happy with yourselves. Increase the production quota, but all that's being produced is wasted and unnecessary slavery and suffering and death and pointlessness and futility. All just billions and billions and billions of failed lives that just go nowhere. Yeah, just that's a Holocaust. A pointless grind. Ugh. Just there's got to be a way for me to be able to convey that very feeling that you get when you just, that sinking, dismal feeling of recognizing just how bad it all is. That you really are. You're just such a bad joke. Sitting here eating your potato chips, watching the animals getting ground up, watching the humans, watching all of these lives get caught in the grinder, and it starts pulling them in, and they're screaming, and you're saying, shut up. You're interfering with my dinner. You're pretending it's all just a video game, and it's not. Something like that. Anyway, so, work in progress, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's really hard to communicate. And it is difficult. I mean, I've been failing at it for, 15 years now. In this form. I mean, I failed at it in, just writing stuff for years, and stuff I thought was pretty compelling and logical and made no dent. So it is a real trick to have the conversation. And clearly you don't get a conversation. That's part of the problem. There is no rational feedback. So you don't even know what you're arguing with or who you're arguing with. What the ideological positions are that actually exist, because they're just all you get back is some sort of quote mind Holocaust denier bullshit, some sort of personal attack that doesn't have anything to do with any of the arguments. So it's hard to argue. But again, when you do get a glimmer of it, it always has something to do with some sort of just an overt perversion of the evidence to defend some notion that there is a bigger mission. That there really is some Star Wars future for us. Like Star Wars would be a good future, right? That's the movie where all the planets get blown up and shit. Not exactly an ideal future. And I guess that's sort of evidence of just how depraved humans are, is that they can think it's a redeeming, life-affirming film, even though it's full of a grotesque amount of failure and pointless and wasted existence and suffering, of course. It's just. They all got a little sad story. Whoever this little Minky was, this gorilla, probably a sad story. All those National Geographic pictures, they all have a sad story. All the pretty pictures, all ended, in some sad and tragic way. There's not going to be any happily ever afters, or that's not the story of any of those pictures. That should be enough. Anyway. Yeah. Alright, so that's enough of a video for today. I will try to do some other stuff this week. And work on flow charts are a good idea. Try to get to the kernel of the disagreement. Where does it really lie? What is the real argument? And such. So forth and whatnot. Yeah, that's enough. I'm going to hit the button any minute now. Alright. Yeah, now.